Alright, hey, this is Andrew again, continuing on from the last video. I believe this is video number 5. Sounds about right. Last time we started playing around with getting the intake finally working to the compression that we want. Between that last video and now, which was like a minute and a half, I figured out why I was getting some weird relations. It was because this circle, this one representing the ball while it's being picked up, was supposed to be at a midpoint to this line. This line that would help me find the compression of the ball at that point. Instead, it was midpoint to this line, the bottom of the bumper. So that was kind of useless. That was messing me up a bit. However, that was not too much of a problem, and we were able to overcome. So we move that aside, and we now get everything back in blue. And normally, if you're my student, then you know that I always say blue is bad. I say it's important that you have all of your lines and all of your dimensions be full. Your lines should be black, meaning that they're fully defined. But this time, if I'm playing around with ideas, I'm playing around with dimensions, and I'm not trying to make a part, I like to have blue lines, I like to have blue sketches, just to make sure I can move things around. And there are times when it turns black and you say, wait, I haven't defined it the way I want it, or you've only defined it one way and it needs to be defined 3 ways, and somehow it turns black, and you say, okay, well, what's going on here? So understanding what the colors mean and how they correlate to what your sketch is doing can be pretty important. Huh. That's interesting. So what I'm doing right now is I'm playing with different compressions. That won't work. And I'm trying to see where I can get some really nice compression values, essentially. Because I want to have compression enough that I have control over the ball, but I don't want it to be too much that all of a sudden I'm just clamping the ball so much that it's hard to move. So I'm playing around with this right here. I'm looking at different positions. That seems like minimal right there, but it increases. I'm really feeling this setup right here. Whatever I have right here starts off when I first contact the ball. I have about 6/10 of an inch of compression. It's a little much for what I want. Realistically, you can compress these things like crazy, but for what I want, for the all intents and purposes, that sounds about good. Like what I'm getting. Maybe I'll bring this down a little more. Yeah, something like that. So what I get from this is something like, okay, that's an inch. I want to start around here. It gets a little heavy with compression on the first one because I'm trying to use the same height for. Yeah, so I'm trying to get the same height here to be relatively the same amount of compression all the way through. Now, in something like this, it's really difficult to get constant compression, and realistically, you don't need it. Like it's unrealistic. The ball is going to change regardless. You can compress these things pretty far. As for an intake, it's going to change all the time, and that's fine. You can have it change by a certain amount, by a certain quantity. You can have it be like 2/3 compression here as the total. I just use these values and I go off of, okay, where's my least compression? Well, that's about a 1/2 inch. Or where's my most compression? And just go from there, realistically. So that looks fine to me. Now, what I like, yeah, this looks good. Now for what I do now is I like to find a reference point, something I can say, okay, well, this makes sense. So how do I reference this from something I know? So okay, let's see, that's about, what, like a little less than an inch from the bottom of that. I like looking for clean numbers. It's about, the center's going to be about 9 inches off the ground. Which I can work with. That's fine. That compression, though, that's a little. It's an inch. So what if I say. No, so that would make it. I'll put these. I'm going to dimension them off this. And that's going to be exactly 14 inches off the ground. Actually, no, I shouldn't dimension them off that. I am being dumb. And the reason I shouldn't dimension them off of that is because that's not part of my robot. That's just my maximum height. I may have a tube or something going there later on, but I want to dimension it off part of my robot. So let me see from the top of that tube. What is it? Okay. 3.8 something, whatever. I like clean numbers. I like fractional numbers. It doesn't make a difference if it's 3.875 or 3.818. But just so I can get the center stuff down and so I can make super simple geometry when I'm making the part, I'm going to make it like 3.875. So I'll make it that. I'll just pretend like the distance there is 4.25. Sure, why not? And I'll say the distance from there to, and I am going to reference this point. I'm going to reference this line. I'm going to say it's my outside frame is 4.8. Not a pretty number. I can make it a pretty number though. Should I use 0.875? What does that get me? Alright, in terms of compression, I have initial compression of a little over an inch. If I bring that in closer, what if I say it's 4.875 minus 0.0625, which I can't think of right now. 3. Yeah, that's not helping any over there. So, cool, that works. Actually, let me see if I can get a little higher. I'm going to say, yeah. So I'll make that a 4 inches even, and that gets me what? Like, it gets me under an inch of initial maximum compression. And then while I'm intaking it, my max compression's about 7/8. So yeah, I can roll with that. And again, like I'm laying this out here. All these numbers are better determined experimentally. I'm going off the top of my head. This could not work at all, but I'm not designing this to be built. I'm designing this for practice and just to show you the design process. So sometimes if you know it's not going to be built or you don't think it matters, just go do whatever you want, make it work. Pretend like, oh yeah, that's going to be the perfect number. What's important now is I have a point where my intake is going to be working perfectly. It's going to be 4 7/8 out, and it's going to be 4 inches from the top of my frame. So I know whenever I make my pivot point, whenever I make my intake part, if I just have it do that, I'm good. And now where I want it to pivot, I can have it pivot anywhere. Whenever it's pivoted in the up position, it's going to be taller than my height, but that's cool because I can just lower the arms, it'll be fine. As long as I lower the intake and it can go into the low bar, it's good. And that's the goal here. So let me see, I got my intake. I've got a pretty good idea of how I'm going to do my rollers based off of these. And actually I will... Yeah, I'll actually, what's the total length? Is there a clean number? 31 1/4? Cool. Yeah, so that'll be fine. This will all work out nicely. Alright, I'm going to have some kind of upper frame. Yeah, I said I'm going to have, what is it like? I said 1 by half. So I'll just add that in here. I'll keep the top a center line. I'll have it horizontally, so the ½ inch is going to be the lower thickness. I'm going to use that just to make sure that is the absolute maximum. Like I have a hard stop going up. That's going to be the max of my frame. And then probably have like a 30-second sheet of polycarb that goes through it. Cool, cool. Okay, now to actually figure out how I'm going to be mounting bumpers, which is an important thing to look at. So I gotta have some kind of subframe. I can use this. What's this dimension? So that's 3.5. Actually, okay. I know what I'm gonna do. So I think this upper section, the maximum that I have, isn't going to be as wide as my robot. It's just going to be as wide as whatever my ball path is. Then I'll have an outer frame that extends from these side rails, these 3.5 ones. And that's going to go up to, let's say this height. Sure, why not? Whatever height this is. It's going to go up to that. It'll be a nice mount for the bumpers. And then I can connect the ½ by 1s just with some standoffs. Alright, so I think this is actually really coming together. I'm pretty sure this will work nicely. It all fits within the frame pretty well. I have a lot of room I can play with if I want. Okay. I'm going to start heading over to I'm in SolidWorks. I'm going to start heading over to making actual parts, and I'm going to get my drivetrain put together. So let's see, how much time do I have in this video? I'm like 12.5 minutes in. I'm going to end this one, and I'll start the next one making parts. Awesome. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next video.